It's time for the news review section. Stay with us. Welcome to the News Review on Press TV. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has slammed the potential cooperation pact between Tehran and Beijing. In an interview with Fox News, he said that a Chinese trade deal with Iran would destabilize the Middle East. He said that China's entry to Iran and Tehran's access to money will compound the risks in the region. The top diplomat stressed that Chinese firms will also be subject to economic sanctions against Iran in case of a deal between the two countries. Iran and China are hammering out a long-term strategic partnership. It includes cooperation in a variety of areas and comes amid worsening relations between Beijing and Washington over a host of issues. Joining me to discuss this a little bit and shed some more light on it will be Einar Tangen, author and columnist from Beijing, and Tim Anderson, director for the Center for Counter-Hegemonic Studies, joining us out of Sydney. Good to see you, gentlemen. To Beijing first. Einar, this is Pompeo's talking about Iran-China relations. It's not Iran-U.S. relations. It's Iran and China, two sovereign nations. What does it have to do with Pompeo in the United States?
Well, obviously, Pompeo sees both China and Iran as enemies of the U.S. But more importantly, you have to kind of shift focus and see exactly what Pompeo is doing. I mean, his president, Donald Trump, looks like he will lose, most definitely. That means that Pompeo has a short period of time. So what is he doing with it? It seems that he's positioning himself for a run in 2024, but it's not clear which part of the Republican Party he will be part of. They're already at war with each other between the hawks, with Rubio and his ilk, and then on the other side you have more moderates, the Never Trumpers, the Lincoln Project. So there's a battle for the soul. It's not clear where he fits in. I think the Never Trumpers will be happy to see him go. So I think this is just his way of trying to make his mark on history. But in terms of these two countries, yes, for China, it doesn't really make much difference. There's no rhyme or reason to the number and target of attacks, other than that they're doing better than American companies against Chinese companies.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tim Anderson, Pompeo is talking about, is actually threatening Chinese companies, he says they will be also sanctioned if they have cooperation with Iranian firms. And he's talking of destabilizing this part of the world. Who's destabilized the Middle East region? Iran or the U.S.? Iran helped Iraq, Syria fight terrorists. What's the U.S. doing in this region?
It's a bad joke, isn't it? It wasn't so serious, really. Look, I think Pompeo is way out of his depth. It's just a question that they're reaping the consequences of the contradictions of their policy. There was a very important editorial in the Washington Post about 2 weeks ago saying that from the liberal side of US politics, that the Trump policy of maximum pressure on Iran had failed, and the result was they have effectively paved the way for China into the region, which the US wanted to control. So they've cut their own throat effectively, and Pompeo is now trying to bluster his way through that problem that they've created for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, Einar, what is it that really is worrying Washington regarding Sino-Iran relations?
Well, first off, I want to agree with my colleague. I think he's spot on. Everything that the U.S. wanted to do is actually backfiring. They're actually pushing China, Iran, Russia, all countries that see the U.S. as a stabilizing entity together. So in terms of what they want to accomplish, there's a long-term strategy by the hawks. They believe that in American exceptionalism, that there's only one system, liberal democratic capitalism, that should be enforced throughout the world, kind of a Hunger Games scenario. And it's just, it doesn't sit well with especially countries that have very long separate histories and cultures that don't really fit into that mold. So they're pushing that. For Donald Trump, it's very simple. He's simply trying to get reelected. He's transactional. There's no strategy in there. He's being led by, I think, the more radical elements, the hawks in his administration, because he believes that this is the one last chance that he has of salvaging his political career, creating some sort of incident with Iran or China, where he can therefore, claim that he's a wartime president, not fighting COVID-19, which he's failed, but throwing missiles around and sending troops into harm's way.
Mm-hmm. And Tim, tell us a bit about the reason why Washington is doing this. I mean, Iran sent oil to Venezuela. They threatened it. Iran did its job, of course. And then they withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. They threatened European countries. Now they are threatening Chinese companies.
Look, it's a path, it's a dead end that Trump's come to. I think the one redeeming feature that the Trump presidency had was some level of pragmatism. It seems that he did want to get out of the losing wars that his predecessors set up in Afghanistan and Syria. Yet, as my colleague said, the hawks in his administration effectively blocked most of that way. And now he's left with this maximum pressure on Iran, which has backfired spectacularly. And it means really the US is on the way to being pushed out of the entire West Asian region. And I think that's going to be what the Trump administration will be remembered for.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Let me thank our guests. We had Einar Tangen, author and columnist, who joined us from Beijing, and also Tim Anderson, director of the Center for Counter-Hegemonic Studies, joined us out of Sydney. And thank you for watching this edition of the News Review.